Hey there, lovely. It's Friday afternoon, 4 for me at this time of speaking, though you may be very well watching this a little bit later on. But I don't know, does it happen to other people? But Friday afternoons, the emails seem to start slowing down, and I think people start not wanting to send you things. And I love that feeling sort of from about lunchtime on a Friday, feeling like everybody's starting to wind down. And of course, if you're in the UK or Spain, or you are British or Spanish, or English or Spanish particularly, this is a big weekend because it is the finals of the Euros on Sunday. And I'm not a massive sports fan for most sports. Cricket, a bit more than any other sport, but um, and so while I wouldn't normally watch a football match or a tennis match, as soon as it becomes cultural, so as soon as you get to sort of semi-finals, finals level, and it becomes part of the culture of the country, then I do get very interested. So I will be making sure that I'm watching on Sunday evening. And because I think it's just I don't want to miss out. If everybody's really happy or everybody's really sad, I get to be part of that story. So some people will call that being a fair weather fan. I call it just actually being interested in what's going on around me and wanting to be part of it. So whichever team you're going for on Sunday, then I wish you the best of luck. So we are carrying on today our deep dive into James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. So we've been talking up to, in our last session yesterday, we talked about how there are 4 stages to a habit that we need to understand: cues, cravings, response, and rewards. Now we're into the section of the book that starts really looking at cues. I think there's quite a bit more to talk about cues than what I'm going to mention today, but this is the beginning of it. So the first thing, according to James Clear, really is that we have to make an audit of our current habits. We need to be more aware of our current behaviour before we start thinking about putting in the new habits. So we already have lots of habits, good and bad, and we probably don't actually recognise the cues for those habits because we've been doing them for so long. We don't necessarily recognise that when we wake up in the morning picking up our phone to turn our alarm off, that might be the cue that sends us to start looking at what the news is, for example, and you might decide actually that's not really a good habit to be doing first thing in the morning. Or if you're a journalist, it may be a very important habit to be doing first thing in the morning. So he suggests we do an audit of our current habits so that we become more aware of our behaviour. So he talks about making a habit scorecard. And what that is a list of your daily habits. So really it's like mapping out your day. Wake up, turn off the alarm, go to the loo, make a cup of tea, whatever those things are. Make that list of what you do throughout your day as best you can. Then you need to go through the list and decide whether each of these habits is a positive, a negative, or a neutral. So, and by positive, it kind of means, is it an effective habit or is it not an effective habit for you? So that's what you need to go through. And like I said, what might be a positive for one person might be a negative for another person. So it's really up to you to decide, waking up, for example, is neutral. So what he suggests is you put a plus sign next to the ones that you consider positive, a minus sign next to the ones that you consider negative, and an equal sign if it's neutral. So waking up obviously is, going to the loo, that's neutral, I would imagine, for most of us. So go through and do that list. And then, and when you're doing it, he says, you don't want to be making any judgments on yourself at this point. You're just noticing what you do. So kind of think David Attenborough in your head. When David Attenborough talks about what he's seeing, with some animals on a nature documentary, he doesn't make judgments. He just sort of says, oh, and then this, isn't it interesting? This happens and this happens. That's the kind of approach that you want to be taking to it. And then, if you're not sure whether something is positive or negative, he suggests you ask yourself, does this habit help me become the person I wish to be? Plus if it does, minus if it doesn't. Is it a vote? We talked previously about your identity, your desired identity. So if I want to be a runner, then go for a run. then that's a vote for being a runner, right? So that would be a positive. If I turned over and went to sleep again, that would be a negative in terms of wanting to be a runner. So that's another way you can kind of think about whether it's a positive or a negative for you. And then the other thing he suggests is if you do notice that there are some habits that you potentially want to change, he suggests you sort of just say out loud what is going on. So I'd say one of my worst habits would be, going on the internet and sort of scrolling through the news, doom scrolling. So if I, having already looked at the news earlier, right? So if I find myself about to click onto the Guardian website for the third time that day, then I could say to myself, oh, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to the Guardian website, and what's going to probably happen is I'm probably going to spend half an hour on here, even though I've actually already read most of the stories. I'm just desperately looking for something new. And so that's really going to be a bit of a waste of my time. And by saying it out loud, it kind of forces you to acknowledge what you're doing. Now, whether it's going to stop me doing it or not, who knows? But at least it's forcing me to acknowledge it rather than just some mindless background kind of thing going on where it just sort of slips past and I don't really notice it. So they're the two things that come out of this chapter. And we're going to, making a habit scorecard, which is something I'm going to have to do over the weekend. I think the mornings are pretty good for me, but then things start to deteriorate. So it's going to be interesting to watch that. And I may need to do it I think it might be a good idea to do it as you're doing it, right? So grab a notebook and as you're going through your day, start sort of keep a log of what you're doing to see if you can pick up what those different habits are, positive and negative, right? And neutral, just all the actions of your day. So that's the first step in looking at cues, because this will help you recognize what the cues are that make you get distracted or move on to different habits. So something to try. Obviously the weekend, you're probably going to have different habits. So you're probably going to need to do this maybe on the weekend, but also say Monday or Tuesday next week, see what habits come up for you then. And on Monday, we will move on and see what the next job is that we need to do in sorting out our habits. Have a lovely, lovely weekend.